Okay, good evening and welcome to a meeting of the Kennebunk Zoning Board of Appeals. It's Tuesday, September 3rd, about 7 o'clock, a minute or two after, and we're here in the Village Fire Station. On the agenda tonight, we have three items. We're going to approve, or review at least, minutes from two meetings. We have some other kind of housekeeping matters for the zoning board with regard to scheduling and the like. And then we have the continued review of the application of Nikola Chris with regard to his application for a home occupation. So before we begin, and before I guess I should take attendance first. So first on the list is Gordon Air is not here. Paul Canigan, the chair, is me, and I'm here. Wayne Fessenden, here.
Present.
Yes. Anything? Great. Hello. Karen Schlegel.
Here.
Jim Fitzgerald is not here. April Defoe.
Here.
Kevin McDonald. Here. Very good. So we have a quorum. So with that, and considering that this is a continued review of a pending home occupation, I'd like the board to agree that we can take the application as our first matter, and so we can do our administrative stuff afterwards. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yep.
That works? Okay, great. Then I'll read the agenda items more detailed. Nikola Kiss doing DBA Port Concierge. This is a continued review. The applicant is seeking approval for a home occupation which would involve storing and delivering chairs and beach umbrellas to prospective customers in the Kennebunkport, Kennebunk area beaches. The application is available for review in the Code Enforcement Office at the Kennebunk Town Hall. The property is located at 58 Beechwood Ave. Tax map 13, Block 6, Lot 14, in the Farm and Forest Zone. So since it is a continuation, and we did have some discussion on it, Wayne was not here at the last meeting. He is going to participate in the discussion, review, if he has any questions or anything, but he won't be voting on the final approval with regard to that since he didn't attend the last meeting. And I would note of record that the application has been modified, and so I think it'd be appropriate to have Nico come on up for a moment, if you would, and just talk about how you've modified your application, if you would.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Nikola Kiss, the future owner of Kennebunkport Concierge. So we need to review some things in application. I wrote a letter to the board, which I'm going to read right now, with more details about everything. So I'm going to use home occupation as a project for my business. It's in 58 Beechwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine. I'm going to use basement as a storage for my chairs, and I'm going to use one parking spot for car I'm going to use in the business. So I have a letter from my landlord, which I can read. He said, as the owner and manager of property, I give permission to Nikola Kiss to store items related to his business that begin beach items, and he let me to use 25% of the basement, which we discussed before. And he let me to use one parking spot as well out of roads. And in my letter, I'm explaining that I will using basement of my home as a storage for the beach and pool items. I'm gonna use I'm gonna use 25% of the basement for supplies, and the basement will be marked as well as a storage area. In front of the house, I have 4 parking spots. I'm gonna use only one, and only one car can be involved in the business, not more than that. No other commercial vehicles can be parked there. Starting with the minimum investments, since the tourist can make a reservation online, there is not going to be any other occupation of the house. No one's going to come to the house. Only I think what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to taking the chairs from the basement, putting in the car, and delivering to the customers on their private address or any other hotel. So there's not going to be the office space in the house because everything is going to be online. There's not going to be any traffic. I'm not going to have any sign on the house because everything is going to be delivered, and there is not going to be any environment of the property.
Okay, thanks. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thanks. You can have a seat. Since we've had, this is a continuation, but since there's new information that's been provided, then I'm going to open up the public hearing again, unless there's an objection from anybody on the board, in case anybody in the audience wishes to make a comment with regard to this application. So is anybody, I'm going to open up a public hearing at this time. Is there anybody that wants to say something with regard to this application this evening on the record? Could you go up to the microphone and let us know who you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm used to that. I'm Harrison Small, and I just have one question there. From what he just said, I don't think anything's going to be hurt as far as environment goes. But is that a permitted use in the farm and forest zone? As the zoning code is written now? Or would there have to be a change in the zoning code to allow him to do it?
Are you asking the board or are you asking the applicant?
I guess mainly the board.
Okay. Well, we can respond to that. I'll respond for myself, though we haven't discussed it amongst the board. But I think that the application, as we discussed the last hearing, is really limited to storing items in his basement. And we discussed that the board doesn't have any jurisdiction over his activities when he leaves the house. So he's got a business concept in mind, but the driving that he's talking about and picking up and delivering, that's kind of outside of our scope. So the only thing in our scope, and pursuant to the modified application, the only thing before us about all the business that he spoke about is just the storing of items in the basement. And in my opinion, we don't need to make a change to the Farm and Forest District, of which I am a representative. I'm just from the Farm and Forest District too. But I think that I think it may be deemed by the board as permitted in this zone.
Because we're
Okay.
only allowing a home occupation use. We're not changing the zone
Right.
It is a conditional use in the farm and forest zone.
as a home occupation,
So
right?
it's a home occupation, which is permitted in most zones, if not all.
Subject to this board's review.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay, hearing nobody else interested in making a comment, and thank you again for your comment, Mr. Small. Then I'm going to close the public hearing. And then, so post-public hearing, we're going to move to a discussion of this application. So I'm just going to recap one thing for Wayne, because I don't know how much you get the benefit of the minutes that we looked at, but, okay. So I'll note that the supplemental, for the record, we all know, but for the record, those that haven't looked at the application has narrowed its purpose or its proposed use down to basement use as storage. And then the board, when we met last, felt that we didn't have any documented evidence of the applicant having an interest in the property. He doesn't have to own the property for home occupation. He has to occupy it, and he has to have some kind of right. And so to meet that requirement, he has submitted his lease agreement for the property. We also brought to his attention at the last meeting that the letter that he had obtained from the owner of the property is a limited liability company. The manager of the limited liability company had provided a letter before, and the letter limited the storage to a single item being beach chairs. And then as the applicant is requesting to store additional items, related items in a way, to the beach chairs, he's gone back and got a different letter from his landlord, essentially, the manager of the limited liability company, that is allowing him to store beach items, all of which I think we could concur are what he's proposing to store. Plus the letter that he's given us a synopsis of when he was standing before us. So that's sort of my recap there of the submission. So now I'll turn it to the board. You know, one thing I didn't ask, did the board have any questions for Nico? Because before we get into discussion, I neglected to. You might.
But
Well, we can call him
depend
back.
on what the board.
Okay, we could call him back. If we have any questions for you, Nico, we'll call you back up, okay? So go ahead, let's begin. You look like you're ready to begin.
Yep. I have a question to the board. Did we just hear correctly that this home occupation will be delivering these items to private addresses and/or hotel?
I believe the answer is no. I'll explain my answer, and it's up for the board to.
Because that's what I heard him just say.
Right, so we discussed this because Nico did a presentation of his entire business, and he had a PowerPoint presentation before. And we let the applicant know that this board cannot give an approval
Read that in a minute.
or any transportation for any component of his overall business endeavor that he wants to pursue, which has to do with, among other things, delivering beach chairs and umbrellas and such to the beach for people and picking them up and bringing them back, and for picking up people and delivering them to different places and back, and hopes to give tours at some time down in the future. We've been clear with the applicant that none of that this board can give approval for. We can't give approval for any of those things because none of those come under our jurisdiction, because none of them fit the description or the definition of home occupation. So he has narrowed the scope, while he still talks of his business in general, he has narrowed the scope of his application to storing items in the basement that he's going to use for his greater business.
And
It would
you'd
be up
want-
to the board to decide if that's a permitted home occupation, the storage of something that he's going to use in a broader sense.
I understand.
Okay.
And I also heard him just say that how his business will operate. So that's all I'm doing. I'm not asking that the board votes on whether he can do that. Is that what I heard? Delivered to private addresses and to hotels.
He can deliver to
Well, that-
wherever and whoever. We have no jurisdiction over where
I
they go.
understand.
That is what he said, to my knowledge, yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
And I understand that we don't have, once he's outside his storage facility,
So I always note that we're kind of confined to that which he's applied for. And so in the application itself, which he has resubmitted, he has narrowed down what he's asking this board for. To basement will be used as a storage for items related to the business, beach items. So he's not, to my understanding, not asking us for permission to do things that we don't have jurisdiction over. Would you like to?
No, I agree. I believe that, as long as I heard that correct, that's all I was asking. And I believe I did hear that correct.
Good question.
And it may sound a little picky, but is a storage facility allowed in, or is the home occupation the greater picture and the storage facility is part of a home occupation?
Well, that's open for discussion.
So I brought it up.
But you don't have any questions for Nico
I don't think so.
directly?
I think this is, it's amongst us so far.
Okay.
I don't see it being a storage facility. It's not as though he's storing everyday furniture and things for the common person. It's storing his own materials, beach-related materials that he's gonna be delivering
For the home occupation, yeah.
for the home
Yeah,
occupation.
I-
So it's
I know
not
it
as though it's a
sounds-
commercial
I know
storage
it sounds
facility,
picky,
because that's
but if-
not.
But if it's listed in the conditional uses, not unconditional and allowed, then I didn't see it, so.
Say that part again?
This, if storage facilities are listed as,
Well, maybe storage facility is a bad choice of words
Right.
on my part, if I use those.
I agree.
Storage facility.
What I understand him to be asking for is, as a part of a greater business, he wants us to give him permission to use the residence to store items in, that he will use in his greater business.
And to
But
run
but
his
all that
business.
he's asking us for is permission to store items in his basement that he's going to use that way.
yep,
Not unlike, and I think we spoke last time about some other businesses that have come for home occupation that we've approved, rightly or wrongly, where they manufactured like, the folks that came in, I think you were here, for the ropes, like lobster trap ropes that were
Yes.
used for manufacturing like
Yep.
mats, doormats and stuff. And so they're manufactured within the property, but then they have to be transported somewhere to be distributed to retail, I mean, retail or wholesale somehow. They can't stay there, that the business doesn't function that way, it's got to be, there's a component of delivery.
yep.
I think I brought up that analogy there.
And they probably store the finished mats within their
Yeah.
home occupation, right, before they deliver them to their final customer.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right, I mean, there is a question of, does this, what he's bringing before us, does that comprise, I think using facility was a poor choice of terms on my part, but it's just to store items that he wants to use as a component of a greater business.
Right.
So maybe your question is, can you segregate his greater business from a component, which would be a home occupation?
Once again, I'm just bringing it up for discussion.
Well, what do you think?
How big can a home occupation become?
25% or less, right?
Well, yeah, 20%
Of-
above grade and
Yeah, of the house,
the
yeah.
entire basement, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
the
and I'm-
walls.
yeah,
Is it, but that's not really your question.
no, it's more volume down the road, what,
Then it will really,
You mean if he
The landlord.
expands the business? Or
If-
the other elements of the business?
no, expansion more or less, and I'm not being absolutely specific to his case. I'm thinking of later, if something,
Well, one thing you may have missed that may not be reflected in the minutes was he did indicate that he has the hope of expanding his business, growing his
True,
business.
that wasn't, yeah.
And that he has intention of knowing that he needs to get to a different location, that this location won't support the expansion
Okay.
that he hopes to achieve through success.
So it stays a home occupation until hopefully it gets big and he,
And then he needs
yeah,
big, yep. And then landlord will also have to monitor it, not us.
But he can only do what we give him permission.
yeah, okay.
And we can tailor our permission to be as specific as possible.
Seems simple.
Well, no, I think it's a good question to ask. More?
No,
Kevin?
I think it meets, as spelled out, and what he's asking to do, I think it meets all the requirements of the home occupation.
Okay. Hey,
I think that the changes that he made, that we asked him to make, or the things that we had problems with the last time, I think he's corrected or adjusted. So I don't have too much of a problem anymore, other than the fact that, I just want him to be aware, our findings to make aware that we're only giving him permission to do what's going on in the house and nothing about delivering to the beach or anyplace else.
I agree with that. That's just one person, though.
I agree. I think we've made it pretty loud and clear that by broadening your first application, you were restricting yourself to chairs only, and you want to do more than just chairs, so your new revised application broadens that, so you can do beach-related items. And as long as you clearly understand, we're not giving you permission to park at Goose Rocks Beach or at Colony Beach. That's gonna be up to you to deal with
The select-
traffic.
That's different rules.
Yep.
I'm already talking with the Kennebunkport Beach, and that's rules coming down.
Well, you can't talk from
Oh,
that. I'll let the record show that Nico says he knows he needs to get, otherwise, we can't grant him permission for those things.
Yep.
And he may or may not need to get permission from some other board or town authority to do that.
I was already invited for the Goose Beach, Rocks meeting.
You need to come up to the mic, I'm sorry, Nico.
I just want to say that I understand that this meeting is just for the home occupation permit, and I'm doing. I have meetings with Kennebunk town hall as well for the Kennebunk Beach, and I was invited for the board as well for a beach meeting in Goose Rocks Beach as well, and we're working for those permissions. We're gonna talk more about the details about the beach delivering, but I understand that that's not part of this meeting.
You understand that all we're entertaining tonight is whether or not, two things really. Can you use the basement as the location for your home occupation of storing items that you intend on letting out and delivering and picking back up, but that you're only looking to us for permission to store the items in the basement? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question for Nico while he's up? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything on your part? No? I'm interested for, Matt, do you have anything to say about this? Could somebody from the code office, either you or Warner, say something about, now that the application is more specific and he has an understanding of limitations, if you find that, what the code and code office thinks about this?
As far as a home occupation,
Yeah,
with the letter he submitted, it seems like he's hit on a lot of the criteria that meets for a home occupation. I think Nico does understand that this is just for the home occupation. It is not for anything else to do with the beaches or anything to do business in a public right of way.
and so you're comfortable. Okay? Wayne, you got anything else before we get going? So just because this is sort of unique, I just want to take a quick walk, not for voting purposes, but just for general discussion, on the conditions for home occupation. So when we consider that it's tailored down to just storing items in the basement that he's going to use otherwise, the questions, under home occupation 7.6A, it's got to be accessory to and compatible with a residential use. It has to be customarily carried on in the dwelling unit or a structure customarily accessory to a dwelling unit. It needs to be carried on primarily by a member or members of the family residing in the dwelling unit. I'm reading from 7.6A and all the subnumbers. It does not materially injure the character or usefulness of the dwelling unit or accessory structure for normal residential purposes. So with regard to those, does anybody have an issue with any of those? This side of the fence?
Nope.
So, then the home occupation has to conform to the following. I'm just going to give a synopsis. I'm not going to read all the words, but it has to be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure, carried on primarily by the members residing in the family, and no more than 2 persons other than family can be employed on the premises in connection with the home occupation. No exterior displays or signage or anything of that like. Nothing objectionable in terms of noise, vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbance, etc. Traffic generation shall not increase the normal volume of traffic in the area. Off-street parking has to be accommodated. And then there's limitations that it's narrowed down to 20% of the dwelling unit floor area. But that excludes basement and attic space, so there's no limitation on this board as to how much the basement is used. Except in the farm and forest and free enterprise zones, a home occupation shall not be permitted in a single-family dwelling in which there is an accessory apartment, but I believe that's not relevant, that doesn't apply here, and only 1 home occupation shall be permitted per dwelling unit. Anybody find that this doesn't conform to any of those criteria? No?
Hey, Paul, just one small little nit.
Please.
He is going to be doing online business, so I think you're going to be using a laptop, I think you said. So, yeah, so just a small little point is, I'm assuming you'll be doing that above grade, probably upstairs, not,
Because it's online, it can be basically from anywhere.
right. Yeah, no, understood.
But
So,
while he's
So
in his
he'll-
home, yes.
I mean, it's a nit, but he will use a very small portion of the above grade, less than the 20%. It's not really spelled
I
out.
agree that while the applicant presented that he's not dedicating any particular space in the
Right.
residential area,
Right,
I agree with your point that he entirely may use some while he's using
some
his phone or his laptop
small amount when you're on
upstairs.
your laptop, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of thoroughly reviewed this, I think, by this time. Does anybody have anything further to comment on this? Seeing no, over here? Wayne, your last chance to opine on anything at all before we shut you out of the process.
I'll turn around.
No, are you satisfied with, you got your answers? All right, then, I'm going to ask for a motion, but before I ask for a motion, I want it to be clear that the motion, in addition to a normal motion with regard to the home occupation, and the criteria that needs to be met to be granted approval for a home occupation, that our motion include specific statement that any other element of the business that beyond the storage of beach items in the basement is not being approved in this application, that it is limited and restricted to that. Sounds like I made the motion, but I don't want to make
Correct.
the motion. One of you guys want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the revised application as presented to us.
And then
With the condition?
Our approval is limited to,
Or, well, his application is for beach items only.
okay.
Yeah.
Our approval is for the home occupation only, and that's it.
Any second?
Second?
Okay. Any discussion?
But you are going to add that caveat to the end of the motion, right?
That's part of our discussion. So what would,
Oh.
that caveat will be,
That we're only approving what he's doing in the house, the storage of the beach equipment. We're not giving him permission to do anything, any of the delivery portion of his business.
anything off the property,
Off the property.
okay? So we'll amend the
Amend the
motion
motion.
accordingly.
Yep.
And is that seconded, the amended motion?
Second.
Thank you. All right, then I'm going to call for a vote. Those in favor of approving as presented, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? We have 4 votes in favor, 1 abstention because he wasn't participating in the last meeting. So it's been approved. And you understand that the limitation on our approval is just for the storage in the basement of the identified beach items that you have presented to the board, and that all other aspects of your greater port concierge business, this board does not approve, and this board cannot approve. And we'll make a statement to that effect in our findings of fact. Okay? All right, thank you. Huh?
Can I just say something?
Okay. Yeah.
I would just like to say thank you everyone for supporting me and helping me, especially the town hall. Matt helped me a lot as well. And this is a small step for Port Concierge, but big for Kennebunkport and Kennebunkport area. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. So that ends that portion of our meeting. So now we will go to, I'd like to go to the minutes next. Try to get a little more organized.
Yep. Two.
And one thing, just as housekeeping on the application that we did just pass, so when you look at the application, you can see that the area on it for map, block, lot, and zone were left blank, but the materials that were submitted included the map, block, lot, and zone. So I felt that they fulfilled that necessity for our decision, as well as the acreage. Okay, so we have 2 sets of minutes. I don't know if you were originally provided 5 sets of minutes, as I was earlier today, but where the 3 other sets or the 4 other sets were approved already. So we have the minutes of July 29th and the minutes of March 25. We'll take March 25, 2019 first. So those that were in attendance were myself, Wayne, April, Jim, who's not here, Kevin, Karen. Kevin was here twice.
I was
apparently.
here 2 times in the
Well,
meeting.
you made quite an impression
Thank you.
at that hearing. So maybe that's one item we can
Correct.
Keep an eye on Trish.
correct on that. And that, April, you were not, oh, yeah, no, you're here. So everybody, we're all voting on these minutes. So other than what I just noted, that Mr. McDonald is listed twice, though I did feel that his presence may have warranted being listed twice. Any other comments on this set of minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on approving the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, the minutes are approved. Next, minutes of July 29th. 2019. Participants, myself, April, Jim, who's not here, Kevin, who's only here once, and Karen. So Wayne will not participate in this. Approval. Anybody have any suggested edits with regard to this? Kevin? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Very good. So everybody who is eligible to do that. I'm going to make a note that, if you would all agree with me, that I should have said when we approved the first set of minutes as amended.
Oh,
By
yes,
striking
name
Ms.
change,
McDonald's
yeah.
name. Okay with everybody on that one? Yes? Yes, thank you. Okay. Then, that brings us to scheduling. So on scheduling, Wayne, having sent your email today, so that now we're talking about the application for Mr. Slater, which is an administrative appeal. I guess I'm the one that created the difficulty with regard to that administrative appeal, because I'll be recusing myself, and I'll detail that for the record at the night of the hearing. But so that seems like now we have, in saying that they can attend either the 24th or the 25th, which were, got a piece of paper in here somewhere, which were previously, let's see. Karen had said you could do the 24th or the 25th. April, you said you could do the 24th or the 25th.
Yes.
Kevin, you said you could do the 24th or the 25th, and Wayne, you said you could do the 24th or the 25th, right? So we need a quorum of 4 in order to have that meeting, and my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the code office and its attorney is available that evening, and the attorney for the board, Amy Chow, is available for that meeting. And I don't remember the names, but the attorney for the applicant is available, and the attorney for the party who obtained the permit from the code office, who will be participating in that hearing, is also available. I actually think we found 2 dates where we have a quorum, and all of the many lawyers that will be attending can attend. Yes.
So, in my,
Identifying yourself.
yes, Werner Gilliam, Director of Planning and Development. In my conversation today with Amy Chow, her request was, if at all possible, would be to have it on the 24th.
Okay, so this, are we entitled to do our own scheduling? I don't know, right?
I have that question, why are we stepping outside our normal times?
The reason that we were stepping out our normal time was because of the degree of difficulty in scheduling this. And that's the only reason. And also, based on our experience from this particular scheduling, I will be disinclined to step out of our normal time for an accommodation after this, unless it's kind of like direly necessary. But we couldn't get all the parties available through this date on a Monday night.
In October,
We haven't moved to October
right,
yet.
because we started this at the end of August, September.
That's right, so this is the earliest dates that all the parties are available. And so while it's outside of our normal hearing date, there's no restriction that says we must stay within that, other than the convenience of the parties here on the board. And I have asked that in the future, nobody attempt to schedule anything during work hours, which makes it challenging for some of us, though not April. So that's the answer to that.
So is the 24th at 7 PM? I kind of lost track
Yes,
of it
that would
here.
be 7 PM.
It is
We're
7
not,
PM.
we can't do
Okay.
anything at 4 o'clock. We can't get a quorum at
Okay.
4. All right, then.
24th?
Unless we get some objection from some party that we are unaware of that asks for continuance, I'm going to ask it to be relayed to Lisa, who will do our scheduling, that the hearing be set for 7 PM on Tuesday?
Tuesday, the 24th.
Tuesday, the 24th. And that is for the administrative appeal filed by the law firm of Allen R. Atkins and Associates on behalf of Mr. Slager, I believe his last name is pronounced, S-L-A-G-E-R. Okay, great. Now we have another meeting. So we have a new application, and that is for a residential
Rumor.
room. That's actually not the title, though. What is the title of it? Residential rental
Rental.
accommodation, an RRA. So the dates that have been put before us, which are Monday nights at 7:00, are September 16th and September 23rd. And I've indicated I'm available on both nights, but my preference would be that we schedule it on the 16th so we don't have back-to-back hearings on the 23rd and the 24th. And I think, I'm not sure who applied, who replied to the email with regard to this. Are you available on the,
Yes.
you can find time in your busy schedule
I
to
can.
slip this in on a Monday night?
I'm just gonna be flexible, yeah.
That is fabulous. Karen,
Same here.
Wayne,
Yeah, yeah.
Kevin?
I'm good.
Wow, okay, so then we will ask if we could convey to Lisa that we'll schedule that hearing for 7 PM on Monday night, September 16th. 2 down, very good. Admin appeal. Okay, and then the final, well, at least, I'll open it up to anybody else. But the final matter is that we need someone to be an acting chair for the evening of September 24th. My intention is to attend, to articulate why I'm recusing myself, and then to recuse myself, so that I won't be able to act as chairman. So we need an acting chair. Thoughts?
Have we this year, I don't recall any time where we have annually voted,
I think that you are correct.
Right.
and that's, I would think in this particular case, that would be legally important.
So, I don't have, first of all, does anybody have an objection to us voting for the offices of this panel this evening, which would come under the umbrella of, and I purposefully asked it to be somewhat vague, which was successfully accomplished in the agenda, other matters related to zoning board of appeals, including schedule. Would the members of this board agree that other matters related to the zoning board of appeals to include scheduling would be broad enough to include voting for offices on the board? Wayne?
Yes?
Kevin?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes. Yep.
And April, and I agree.
Yes.
Aye. So
Paul, question, have you ever voted for vice chair or whatever you call it in the
Well,
past?
I was voted chair in, I asked about this. I was voted chair in 2017. And I don't think we've had a vote since.
We have.
And I asked, who's the vice chair? And, which I actually thought was you.
Yeah.
And they could not confirm that through the minutes that they could find. But my recollection was you were the vice chair.
Same here. I thought Wayne was too.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I would think that we would, let's have a vote. We'll do 3 positions. We have a chair, we have a vice chair, and then we technically are to have a secretary. I've acted as secretary for a few years because everybody absolutely refused to do it. I would very much like to see somebody who may have more time than others consider the position of secretary. But we'll see. So let's start with, so we'll need a nomination, well, I guess a second, and then we'll do a vote. So,
Do I have to
yes.
jump? I'll make a motion that we elect Paul Cadigan as chair, Wayne Fessenden as vice, oh,
One at a time. All
one at a time, okay,
Sorry, I didn't mean to be, I just,
right, so that's a nomination, you're nominating.
yes.
Okay.
yes.
Any other
Second.
nominations for chair?
I seconded that motion.
Okay, all right, so it's a nomination and a motion and a second. I'm gonna recuse myself from this vote. So all in favor of Cadigan as chair, affirmative, raise your hand. Okay, so all four in favor and one abstention. Okay, now vice chair.
I'll make a motion to nominate Wayne Fessenden as vice chair.
I'll second the motion. Anybody want to offer another nominee as vice chair?
I have a discussion.
We'll have a discussion. Okay, discussion.
Uh, It's not a difficulty, but an understanding. June, July, and August, my email communication is extremely limited and usually only for one day.
We've noticed.
And I can't economically change that.
Okay.
And I can also be so far off shore or someplace that I can't get back if you are not here. Generally, we know far in advance, as we did the one time.
Yep.
The other is, and it's purely from history on another board that we've worked on and done very well with. It was a long time, and perhaps it's time for someone else to have a chance to be a chair or vice chair. I was for a considerable period of time on another board. And so, if it's someone else's turn,
Do you not want to be vice chair?
I'm being polite.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
If there is someone else.
Oh,
So,
would
is there-
anybody else
is
have
there other
any
I know
interest?
everyone will
Karen?
shake their, yeah, see,
Would you be, I'll poll, let me poll the panel. Kevin, you interested in being
No.
vice chair?
I would say that since I've only been to a couple of meetings, I probably don't have the level of experience to be vice chair at this point.
you learn quick.
Though the chair recognizes your out-of-state experience on zoning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
April, do you have interest in being vice chair?
I do not.
Because I know you're holding out for that last position.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Karen, do you have
No.
interest in being vice
Nope.
chair?
No.
All right, so we have a nomination and we've got a motion and a second to elect Wayne as the vice chair of the zoning board of appeals. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye, aye,
Aye.
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 Okay. So, and you're abstaining from
I'm not voted, so, yeah.
that? Did you vote against yourself or or did you abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, so we do have a vice chair. And, which was always my understanding before, but we couldn't, and I said, I thought it was you, but
Well, and we actually did, like I said, we had a meeting.
they couldn't
You
find that.
weren't here, we couldn't find you, so
We couldn't find that. Okay, so that's done. Now that's done. Now the all-important secretary. I am a little tired of writing all the decisions, but I'll write this decision this evening, and I'll assist anybody in writing future decisions. But I would like a secretary. I don't mean to just, I'm not just going to. I'm looking at the other, oh, no, I can't do it. We can't do Jim, he's not here.
Want to bet?
He can't defend himself. I can't do
Been
that.
done before.
I know, but
Right,
he's
you can't-
having surgery. We can't do,
Well-
we can't well, all right, you can nominate him if you want to. I can't do
I
it.
will.
You nominate Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
In
In his absence.
In abstention, yeah. Any other nominations?
I've done these for too many years, so that's why I'm just being a regular member these days.
Well, if I'm very cooperative and the minutes you don't have
And
to
we
do,
have formalized and made a nice format of how to fill out the findings.
we do.
I don't want to bump Jim, though. If he really wants it, he can have it, but if not, I know it. Yep.
I have created a form for residential rental accommodations. I have created a form, I may not have it here, for home occupations.
Do you know how many years I did that, Chad? I did it for 17 years on multiple boards. I'm done.
So, I'm not gonna nominate you unless you do it.
I'll do it.
All right. So I'm gonna nominate Karen Schley.
I
Okay.
second.
Competition.
Do we have a second for the nomination of Jim Fitzgerald?
I can't.
You can't second your own. I'm not seconding that.
He was here twice, so I can.
Well, maybe
Yeah, I can't lie.
Kevin can vote twice, maybe. Just joking. All right, so we don't have does anybody want to second the nomination of Jim Fitzgerald? So we can have an actual, nobody, okay, so hearing none. And we have two nominations, but only one motion and second. So then I'm calling for a vote to the election of Karen Schlegel as secretary of the board. All in favor? Aye. And none opposed. Very good.
Karen.
And then, so that's 4 with 1 abstention. I won't leave you high and dry, I promise you.
Oh, I know.
I absolutely promise you. Okay, and so so in my absence, the vice chair will chair any meeting as is appropriate. And so that addresses our issue for if I recuse myself, which I will be recusing myself in the next
We've
meeting.
heard that.
Yeah, and I can't say it enough times. Well, I'll explain I met with the applicant. I spoke with the applicant about the matter. I then was asked by the applicant to view the property. I then tried to set up a time to view the property, but the applicant was sick at the time. I then, I had materials delivered that I had looked at on behalf of the applicant. And then I met with the applicant again when I said I wasn't going to be able to represent him, though I actually didn't envision it to be an application to this board at the time. I thought it was going to be addressed otherwise. And to me, I have no pecuniary interest in the matter, but I think as a matter of propriety, I don't think I belong a voter in that matter. I also think I would create an appellate issue if I participated in that meeting, which I'm mindful of, and so I'll reiterate that next time. we're
So
here.
that next meeting, won't Amy Chow step in? Because she usually likes to review and
Well-
write some of the findings and notes.
I think that, for my understanding is that, not for the next meeting, because the next
Right.
meeting, we're going to address the residential rental accommodations matter. But the subsequent hearing on the 24th, I believe that it will be scheduled for a
Executive session.
thank you, an executive session with the council, which will be an agenda item. Okay. Any other business before the board? A fruitful and productive meeting.
And Karen, you have mentioned that Amy taking her own notes and any other things.
Just from my experience
Right,
of,
remember, we have done in the past when we had an attorney who might have to defend it, that attorney takes the board's notes,
Oh.
and then we vote on the notes, her notes, at the end of the session. So
but, you know,
that she
we
can-
obviously, she's gonna lead that,
Right, so that she can refer to her own notes as opposed to having to look at yours or whoever would be assigned note taker.
yep,
Well, I think that she'll figure out what she wants to
Yep.
do.
Right.
That's clear.
right.
Well, I mean, I'd suggest that we don't direct her to do anything, that she just,
That's why I said ask.
yeah. But my understanding with regard to minute keeping is that that's not so much the function of the secretary.
Yeah, it's
But
whoever
it's-
it's assigned to.
It's more to the person that does the minutes, and I believe most of the time that's done off tapes now. Is that how it's done, Warren? So, anything else, any other business? All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Kevin,
Motion to adjourn.
second?
Second.
All in favor? We hereby adjourn. Thanks, everybody.